In Touch Interviews, a presentation of Body, Mind, Spirit Radio. Thank you for joining us for conversations designed to keep you in touch. And now, the host of In Touch Interviews, Annette Avon.
I am. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the warm introduction. Hello, everyone. It's the 30th day of November, 2013, straight up 10 a.m. Eastern here at Body, Mind, Spirit Radio. Boy, are we glad you're here. Not only is this the very end of November, but you know what that means? Ching! That means a whole brand new programming month starts at Body, Mind, Spirit Radio. And it also means that the Body, Mind, Spirit guides are out. If you are not in the state of Michigan somewhere where these guides can be picked up for free at such a variety of retailers and service businesses, go to bodymindspiritguide.com and find out, type in your zip code, find out where you can get it. But if you're not, you can also read the guide online, and you can arrange to have a subscription sent to you. I mean, it really is very easy, bodymindspiritguide.com. You want to check that out. In fact, it's funny, I had a friend here that was visiting over Thanksgiving, and he said, I picked that up at the place where I get my hair cut. And I just looked at him and said, yay. That was downriver, Michigan, so I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing you want to do is go to bodymindspiritradio.com because, as I said, we've got a whole brand new programming month starting tomorrow, which is Sunday, December 1st, 2013. And I give the date all the time because we are going to go into archive when this show is over. And you could be listening to this show at any point in time, so I want you to understand where we're coming from. So anyway, we do have some programming lineup changes in December because of the holiday. Many of our programs are regular shows on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but because of the Hello Radio, because of the holiday season, they've been moved, they've been relocated. So you definitely want to check bodymindspiritradio.com to get specific about some of these programming changes because we don't want you to miss your favorite programs. We definitely don't want you to miss your favorite programs, as well as see who all the wonderful people are that are coming on. Lots of great shows. Still room for your show. bodymindspiritradio.com. When you scroll down to the bottom, you find contact information that allows you to bring your message to this very radio network and send it out to people all across the world. So you're definitely going to want to get in touch with Penny Golden, and all that contact information is right there at the bottom of the website for bodymindspiritradio.com. So welcome to today, the 30th day of November 2013. Again, I said 10 a.m. Eastern. We're live. We're in touch today with Golden Lotus Yoga Spiritual Awareness. It is an amazing thought. It's an amazing lifestyle. And Roy Thibodeau and his wife Marianne have actually been doing this for over 40 years. And J. Oliver Black, the man who built the Song of the Morning Ranch in Vanderbilt, Michigan, has been the person that they've been disciples of. And he directly connected to Paramahansa Yogananda. I knew I'd get it right if I just slowed down and said it. But anyway, if you've ever read Autobiography of a Yogi and you realize or you know anything about the Self-Realization Fellowship Center, this is where all of this great information is going to lead us back to and then forward again and bring us into the current moment. So we've invited Roy to come to the program today and tell us all about Golden Lotus Yoga and spiritual awareness. Roy, untie my tongue with some yoga, man. What's going on with this? Welcome to the program.
Well, that was a great introduction. I appreciate it. It was a pretty good explanation also.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, and it's funny because I can say Yogananda's name until my hair turns blue, but today, not for a nickel or a dime. So that's all. But it's all good because I know he's smiling down on us going, it's okay, lady, it's okay. Just relax. It's all good.
Well, you said everything, so I think I'm done here.
Oh, horse feathers, not at all. This is, see, wait a minute. Now, this is, and we were discussing this just a little tiny bit before the show started. I know about a baby finger's worth of knowledge about yoga, but I know it from a standpoint of what I read, what I hear people tell me, and then the little tippy tiny tip of the end of my fingernail on my baby finger, just to give people an idea of how much you don't know that you think you know. I know because of yoga practice. So this is why you, who have been doing this for a long, long, long time, made it a lifestyle, really it's why you're here today, because you've got so much more to share from a standpoint that might enlighten us to why we might want to spend the rest of our days on this planet being connected to yoga, and why and what it's done for you. So, Roy Thibodeau, don't be so dang shy and modest. You got a lot of stuff to share with us here. So why don't you tell us, in your own words, who you are and what got you and Marianne started. And by the way, did you meet Marianne in all of this, or were you and Marianne together when you started all of this? Because I was curious to know that myself.
No, we met after we got into it. I was a young buck when I met Mr. Black, of about, I'd say 23 at the time. And I just graduated from college with a degree in math and physics from Western Michigan. And I had read the autobiography of a yogi. A good friend of mine had given it to me for a graduation Christmas present. I was so taken by it that I immediately subscribed to what SRF has, these weekly lessons that they will send you if you subscribe. So I did. And I realized right from the beginning that I just knew how to meditate. And then I, by chance, about 3 months later, met Mr. Black. We call him Yogacharya, which just means yoga teacher, which is a title that Paramahansa Yogananda gave him. And he was one of Paramahansa Yogananda's most advanced male disciples. And he had a center where he did a Sunday service in Detroit down at the Detroit Art Institute. And he would attract, when I went down there, he would attract 300-400 people per Sunday. And they held it in the large auditorium in the Art Institute. He was, because of his relationship with Yogananda and the autobiography of the yogi, he was very well known in yogic circles, so he would attract quite a following, mostly from the Midwest, Chicago, Toronto, Cleveland, Milwaukee, and of course Detroit. But people from all over the world would come to see him. And I met him almost by mistake, and right away I knew that he had what I wanted. He was already 79 years old when I met him, and he was the happiest person I ever met. And I thought to myself, most people as they get older, they get to get a little sour and dour because life's passed them by possibly, or they haven't accomplished what they wanted, or maybe they're having health issues, or all of these things that maybe didn't go right in their life. So most people as they get aged don't get happier. Well, he was the happiest person I ever met, and I would say that even today. He's still the happiest person I ever met. And I thought to myself, now that's what I want. And now I tell everybody I'm the happiest person that I know. and I think that is the most compelling reason to get into yoga and spiritual practices, because everybody wants to be happy. That's the motivating factor for everything that we do. We don't do things to be sadder. We don't do things to be unhappy. Everything we do to become more happy. And we make mistakes along the way because we think that some things are going to make us happy. Say, for instance, alcohol or drugs or sex or any number of habits, bad habits that we acquire. But we don't do them originally because we think they're going to make us sad or unhappy or unhealthy. We do them originally because we think they're going to make us happy.
Right.
And unfortunately, we're creatures of habit. And so we get into habits that aren't good for us, and they destroy our health, they destroy our mental peace, and we become unhappy. So I thought I was smart enough, I guess, if that could be said, that I realized that that's what I wanted, and he had it. So I determined right then to follow him. And so I'm not answering your question directly, but shortly afterwards, he had established this yoga retreat in northern Michigan in Song of the Morning Ranch, 800 acres just northeast of Gaylord. And I went up there to live with him for 3 years and be trained by him. and learn the secrets of what he had. And while I was there, Mary Ann, my wife, was a school teacher in Gaylord, originally from Alpena. And she came out and we met. Really wasn't anything super at the time. She brought her boyfriend with her.
Oh, that's a real deal breaker right there.
But later, when I had left the staff there and went out and lived in the Gaylord, I worked there so I could still be close, but I started to do my work in the real world, and we met again, and I don't know, maybe a year later we were married by Yogacharya at the retreat. And he christened all three of our children. It was a wonderful experience.
Awesome. And I love something that you talked about when you talked about happy, and we search these things that we think are going to make us happy. And the one thing that I found was interesting, the common thread that I picked up anyway, were these were things that were outside of us. And I got the distinct impression that what you found when you read Autobiography of a Yogi that then put you on this path was something that could be inside of you and nurtured and cared for and brought forth. And I think that's, so creating habits, I think, is an excellent thing, as long as we're creating the habit that nurtures and cares for us, as opposed to the habit that we have to constantly chase that will eventually destroy us. So that's just the way I read into what you were saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because if I am, set us on the right path.
That's exactly right. Everybody has that innate quality, and depending on what tradition you're from, what religion you believe in, or no religion at all. In the West, we tend to call it the soul. In Hinduism, they call it the Atman, or you could call it the life force if you want it to be more modern. Whatever you call it, the name's not important, but your essence, what you really are, because we get mixed up almost as soon as we're born. We take our first breath. We begin, now I'm saying we as the soul, begins to identify with the body. And we think, and after a while, we just, when you say I, when you say Annette, what do you think of? You think of the physical body, Annette. When I say Roy, my immediate attention goes to, yes, this is me. But what we really are is we're this life force or this soul that animates the body, that gives it life. And as soon as that life force or soul exits the body's just a bunch of chemicals. It's a clay, lump of clay, like the Bible says. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So what we really are is this our innate spirit is pure bliss. The yogis have a saying that what we are is bliss. And Yogananda describes bliss a little bit beyond happiness. You might say joy, but I would say even a little bit beyond joy, because they're a little bit passive, where bliss is, he describes as unending, ever new, ever changing bliss, so that you never get bored. It's always changing. It always keeps you enraptured. And that's our innate quality. So what you said is exactly right. If you go within and disconnect, the yogis say, from the five senses, like taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight, because those are the things that we use to perceive the outside world. And when you cut those off and you go within, then you begin to experience your true inner nature, which is bliss. And then the yogis also say that when you find it within, you see it everywhere without. So those saints, and we have all kinds of examples of saints in every religion. When they reach that state, they're just always in this state of constant bliss, and they see God everywhere, or they see the Spirit everywhere. They see it in every human being. They see it in every plant. They see it in every animal. They even see it in inanimate things like the floor and the chair and the table, because that's all there really is. In the beginning, all there was God. And so what else could anything be made of? There isn't anything else. It's just we perceive it because it's part of the drama. The yogis say this creation is like God's sport. It's like his play. And it's meant to entertain not only God, but meant to entertain us. The problem is we get so identified with it, we got so wrapped up into it, that we forget what's really real. And the process of yoga is that science, and we describe yoga as a science. It's that process of working your way back to your essence, because we get stuck, and we've had so many habits, we've lived so many lives that we forget our true essence. And yoga is the path with very scientific instructions that lead us back to our essence.
Awesome. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, a number of years ago I had an experience where I lost my ability to walk for several months. And I was quite stunned by that, to be honest with you. It was nothing that I would have cognizantly created, and then in retrospect I realized I had. But that being said, when I was able to walk again, there wasn't a thing that I did that I wasn't grateful. I could have been the dishes, carrying out the garbage, scrubbing the toilet, things that we look at and think of as chores and drudgery. And, okay, I've got to do the dishes. And, well, hey, you just ate well. You have dishes to do. What are you complaining about? But the idea to me is that I got a taste in that small amount of energy of what you're describing in regards to bliss, Roy, because I couldn't do those things, and I had lived 50 years on this planet to that point where I could do those things. And for that brief period of time, brief meaning in life at the time, it seemed like it was going on forever, where I couldn't. And I had to rely on people to bring me a toothbrush, people to bring me, water, a vitamin, where I feed my cat, all these things that when you don't realize what you take for granted and how joyful it is that you can move and you can see and whatever else. So if that little bit of joy could be experienced in that regard at that time, I can only imagine what you talk about in this constant, recycling of bliss. Like it's bliss, but now there's more bliss, and there's bliss, and now there's even more bliss. And people think that that's
a great way. I like that.
Thank you very much. But people think that this is, some people, a bunch of hooey. And I don't. Trust me, I'm not the adversary here. I just, present the adversarial point of view for the sake of humor and enlightenment, because there really isn't anyone out there who doesn't want to be happy. And that's where I think the dichotomy lies. You say there can't be this type of happiness. Well, Roy just told you there is. And you say that there can't be this type of happiness because don't you think in some small capacity, or maybe even a large one, people are afraid to find that happiness? And if so, what would make you think would keep us afraid to even try to find that happiness?
Well, they don't know, and people are a little bit afraid of change, and they're a little afraid of the unknown. And so that many times, not all people are the same because they have different experiences and they see things differently, but in their essence, they're the same. I mean, they're different because God is so creative and so ingenious that, like we're fond of saying in our culture, there's no two snowflakes that are exactly the same. Think about that. That's an incredible thing. But God is so creative that he has the ability to keep us enraptured and engaged and entertained forever and never do the same thing twice. I mean, it's staggering. God, the concept of God really, and this is what limits people. People who say they're atheists and all that, that's a bunch of hooey. They believe in something, and whatever they believe in is their God. And,
right, exactly.
And when you, God is so grand, and we think in these small terms. We get wrapped up in these nits and gnats in our lives, and they draw us in, and they suck us in, and we get everything. These little minute things become important when the reality is, of course, they are important, but there's so many grander things that we could think about. All religions have 4 qualities that they give to God, or 3 actually, and the yogis give another. And we fight about this, but We never fight about these three ideas of God. All religions teach that God is omnipresent. He's everywhere. All religions teach that God is omniscient. He knows everything. And I use the pronoun he, but God is beyond gender. We could say she. It doesn't matter. So I don't want to offend anyone who would think I'm being, too far on the male ego trip here. God is beyond gender. And they also say that God is omnipotent. He's all-powerful. All religions teach that. And when they get off into their dogma and their myths and maths, all you have to do to see if they're telling you the truth is go back to those three things. Does it violate the idea that God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient? And then start thinking in those grand terms. Think about what that means. That means omnipresence means God is everywhere. There isn't anywhere he isn't.
Right.
That's unbelievable. And there isn't anything he doesn't know. Mr. Black, I have a lot of audio tapes of his, and I sell some of them for people on a website. A lot of people used to record him, his talks and his services. And he made this comment once, and he said, he was kind of just thinking a little bit and just speaking. And he said, just think about this. He said, God is busy running the whole universe. He keeps all the planets in their orbits. He keeps all the stars in their orbits and the galaxies. He keeps the galaxies moving around so they don't collide in with one another. He says, and that's just physical creation. You get beyond physical creation, it's as vast as that. And God takes care of all that to the minutest detail. But yet, he has the time to listen to your every thought and desire. Isn't that an unbelievable thought?
That's humbling. That's
amazing?
That's humbling. You know what I'm saying? Because, and I get you, and I get you, and when you get that, meaning you, the listener, you, or us, the participant, you, there's got to be something at first humbling about it, and always, but at one point then really joyful and cool, because how many times have I heard people say, have I said to myself, God, I just wish somebody understood me. And notice what I just said. God, I just wish somebody would understand. Yeah. Hello, radio. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. God, I just wish somebody would understand me. Or gee whiz, I wish somebody would understand me. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. And the funny thing about it is, I think that is us feeling the separation because we draw that line, not because that line was drawn by any other energy. And I'm using that term because people call the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent energy, whatever they want to call it. So whatever energy you call that other energy didn't draw the line from you. That other energy didn't cast you into some, vat of boiling, olive oil because of whatever. We feel the need to punish ourselves, and I think it goes back to the question about why we separate ourselves from the pursuit of happiness, because we don't think we're worthy. Because some people look at that description you just gave of it keeps the stars going and the sun shining and the moon glowing and la 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 la, and yet still would listen to you, and there'd be that little voice inside, that little self-critic that would say, yeah, and your mother wears army boots. There's no way. There's no way. And then we keep sabotaging ourselves in that pursuit of happiness because somehow we don't think we're worthy. How does yoga break, I don't like that word, but I'm going to go with the phrase anyway, break down those walls? We can bring happiness to us.
And that is the essence of yoga. The very word yoga is a Sanskrit word. And it's been really misrepresented in America lately. Today, if almost everybody in America has heard of yoga today, but what they think of when the word yoga is mentioned is they think of the physical asanas and postures, which real yogis call hatha yoga. That's a small part of yoga. The word yoga actually means to unite or to bind or to yoke together. So what the word really means is to take your individual soul and commune or bind it to the oversoul, ultra God. That's what the word yoga means. It also describes the processes that are used to achieve that state. So the whole process of yoga is to down, as you said, that those barriers in that wall. We would call it the ego. The idea, see, it's only an idea, really. The idea that we're separate from God. That idea is a misconception. It's not possible because God is omnipresent. There's no way that we can be separate from God, but we think we are. And so we have to get rid of that idea. And yoga itself means that you've united back with God, but it also means the process that we use to get there. Because once you've got the idea that you've separated, you have to do something to reunite, to get rid of that idea and break down that barrier. And that's the process of yoga. There's a nice analogy. Analogies are great tools. Jesus used them all the time. We call them parables. All the Sufis, they use their Sufi stories. They try to get average people to see spiritual concepts by little teaching stories, and they're never 100% true because they'll break down, because the reality is you can't describe God, really. You have to experience God. God can't really, in his essence, be talked about. It's beyond thought and talk. So you have to experience it through yoga. And so a nice analogy Mr. Black used to use, and I'll try it on you. He said, do you know why you can't see your own eyeball?
Why?
Well, because you're looking through it. And every once in a while we get a smart aleck person and say, well, I can see it in the mirror. He said, no, that's not your eyeball. That's the reflection of your eyeball. And then after he would ask that.
See, I make comments like that. No, that's just a reflection. Then they call me a Weisenheimer or worse to that, and people walk away. But I got that. I truly did. That's funny.
And then the follow-up, the reason for the analogy, which is the most critical part of that saying, is that's why it's so difficult to find God, because you're it.
Ooh. And you know what? That if we reach a point in our lives, and they say that by the time we're 5, we've got everything figured out. We know right from wrong, whatever else, and then it's a matter of trying to live in that world, understanding it, and we see the contrast constantly, which then confuses us as we grow. So we think, oh, we must be wrong, go do this or that. But if you had that conversation with a little one, the little kid that really hadn't had that much worldly experience, and still had that little bit of cocoon of the wonder, being in the wonder of it all, that child would embrace that. It would make so much sense. And I remember seeing, I love Facebook. I used to hate it. Now I think it's just the funnest thing in the whole wide world, because it's like a library that moves in front of me with pictures. I think it's great.
Yeah,
it's like instead of going to the library
Facebook.
and trying. I do too. I think it's hysterical. I love it. And there was a picture that was going around that showed a little kid, like it said, if every 8-year-old in the world learned to meditate, this everything would turn out okay. All the wars would stop, all the starvation would go away. I got to believe that, because at some point we lost our innocence and our belief in the ability to bring all of this together. But when we were little, we didn't have that what's the word I want to use? Cynicism. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
We believed everything was possible. If you told me I was God, by God, I'd walk up to a stranger and say, I'm God, hi. And of course the people would look at me like I was nuts, and depending on what path they followed, they'd look at you and say, you better get yourself to church and get saved, kid, because you're nuts.
Yeah.
But it's at that point in time, we believe it then, because we haven't had enough exposure to the contrast and the roping in of cattle. That's why I loved when you said yoga. I'm reading this note, and I'm like, what's like a yoke? I hook the oxen to the thing and to the cart, and it pulls it. It's a yoke. But in some way of thinking, it people, the noun yoga, the verb yoga, the adjective yoga, I think it's really important that you stress that, and I'm grateful because that's what people don't get. When you said the word yoga, the first thing I thought of was pretzel, because that's what I thought yoga was when I was a kid. Well, they twist themselves into all that. They must be a contortionist. They must be double-jointed. And it's like, yeah, that was a little, odd. But then as people started to come forth with a deeper explanation like you just gave us, then to me it started to make sense, especially when I stopped doing drugs, I stopped drinking, and I stopped doing all kinds of other crazy junk that I didn't need to do. And I'm not saying everybody else out there has to make any changes like that in their life. I did, and the difference was then I realized why I was choosing those things. And I think that at any point in time that somebody chooses a path of spiritual awareness, they're going to find the different tools that will work for them. And you mentioned Hatha yoga, and you talked about postures, but then I also have heard the term, and I think you have too, of Kriya Yoga, which I will spell that for those that will look it up and not realize how it's spelled. It's Kriya, Kriya Yoga, and Raja, Raja Yoga. What's up with all these yogas? Why all these different yogas, and what are they going to do for us?
I want to talk about that, but I want we're kind of in a stream of consciousness here.
No, be my guest.
You said something that I really would like to address because I think it's almost fundamental into getting onto the path of yoga. Whether you call it yoga or not is not important, but a path that's very similar. And we just, I'm a yogi, so I just lump them all into yoga. But I would say virtually everyone on the planet that's born has some kind of spiritual experience in their life. Some maybe more than once. And most people, it will be a dramatic time in their life. You mentioned the time when you couldn't walk. And almost virtually everybody will have something like that. Some will be more affected by it than others. But if you have that experience and you're ready, then you get a certain hunger to search for maybe why that happened or what that's all about. And what you really are looking for is you want to duplicate that experience. You want to have it again if you're hungry. Some people that have it once, and maybe they remember it for their whole lifetime, but they kind of dismiss it, and they forget about it. It takes on a very secondary role as opposed to maybe making money or whatever other interests that they might have. But for those that show an interest, then the goal becomes what yoga teaches is not to just have it once, but to have it really whenever you want to be able to sit down and meditate and to duplicate, not completely because every experience is different, but at least have a spiritual experience. So it's not a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It may be, in the beginning, maybe it's something you have once a month, or maybe after a while, after some more practice, you have one a week, or after a while, you can, every time you sit down to meditate every day or twice a day, you have a spiritual experience, until the ultimate goal is that you live in that experience. And so that process is yoga. So the process that people will go through, and not everybody's ready. Not everybody's supposed to be ready. God controls the universe, and He has a reason for keeping creation going. And if everyone were to find God at once, creation would collapse. There'd be no interest. So some of us, unfortunately, have to stay here. But for those that are ready, they get this desire. And when they have the desire to find out what this is all about and find God or happiness or bliss or whatever definition you give that ultimate experience you want to have, when we have that great desire, the yogic and Hindu scriptures say God sends you a guru. And a guru, and typically, when you're ready to go to the ends of the earth, to find your guru, and guru just means spiritual teacher, or sometimes it's defined as dispeller of darkness. When you're ready to go to the ends of the earth, they appear close at hand. And I'm a prime example. I was ready to go wherever I needed to go, and he ended up being in Detroit, of all places. Think about that, a guru in Detroit, unbelievable. And,
yeah, exactly.
And then they become two things for you. They become your teacher, but more importantly, they become your example of how to do it. Because, a lot of people can spout philosophy, but if they can't show you by their actions and their life, they're a little bit hollow. And nobody likes a hypocrite. Don't we just all hate ministers and preachers who are hypocrites? They tell us, do this, do that, and then you look behind the curtain at their life and they're a mess. They're doing drugs, or they're into sex, or they're alcoholics, or they're nasty people, and you think, God, talk about something that turned you off to religion. But when you find that guru, then you need to hook up with them, because there's such a driving force in the environment that you keep. In fact, Yogananda, in part of his teaching, says environment is stronger than willpower. A great example of that is if you're an alcoholic, you can't hang out with people and drink. You just can't do it. Not if you want to get better. If you're and you can use it in a positive way. It doesn't have to be negative. So if you want, for instance, I'll use a real materialistic example. If you want to become wealthy, and in my career, I'm in the financial business, so I know this for a fact. If you want to be wealthy, the quickest way to be wealthy is hang out with the wealthiest people you can find, and you'll become wealthy just by osmosis. So take that over to your spiritual life. If you want to become a saint or a realized yogi, self-realized yogi, find a self-realized yoga and do what he says or she says, and live the life that they live, and just hang out with them. And if you can't do it physically, because sometimes that's not possible because of your family situation and things. For instance, a lot of my life I couldn't be with Mr. Black because I was developing a career. I had a wife and 3 kids, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't have enough money to go up there. I had to come down here and work and make a living, which I did. It was part of my karmic experience that Mr. Black taught me. But you even if you can't be with them, you tune in with them in your meditation, and you remember what they taught you, and you try to live by their example. And that's how you make progress on the spiritual path. You can read, and there's some great philosophical treatise, and Raja Yoga, by the way, let's get into that, Raja means kingly. So Raja Yoga is the royal or the kingly path. And that phrase was coined back in the 1800s by a great yogi named Swami Vivekananda. He was one of the first yogis ever to come to the United States and spend some time here. He was extremely popular. He lectured all over the country. And he called Raja Yoga, and Raja Yoga is the royal yoga in that it encompasses all these different styles of yoga, one of which is Hatha Yoga, the physical side, which is important to stay healthy. Another would be what we call Bhakti, or the yoga of love and devotion, or Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of selfless service. Somebody like St. Teresa, we would say she's a Karma Yogi. And then Raja Yoga says, well, why don't we take them all and use them all, put them all together, and add meditation. And so that is Raja Yoga. And I'll quickly go through. There's a thing we call the Eightfold Path, which is one of the fundamentals of Raja Yoga. And it's just these 8 steps, and everybody goes through them. How fast they go through them varies from person to person, and it could take lifetimes. But the first step is what they call the yamas. You need to, it defines the things that you shouldn't do, all the negative things that you shouldn't do, like stealing and killing and eating bad foods and all the bad habit type things. Those are called the yamas. You have to begin to avoid those. That's the very first step. If you haven't got past the yamas, you can't really do much else effectively. And then there's the niyamas. This is a place where I think Judaism and Christianity fall down a little bit. They give us the 10 Commandments, which are the yamas, but they don't tell us what to do, which is the niyamas. So when you're trying to get rid of a bad habit, the only way you can do it is replace it with something good. Because if you don't, it's very likely you're going to develop another bad habit, because nature abhors the vacuum. You can't just get rid of something. You have to replace it. You have to take up that time with something. So let's use the alcoholic again. It's a really easy example. I don't mean to get on alcoholics. That's not my objective.
That's okay. Been there, done that. I'm a friend of Bill W. Go right for it. It makes sense to me.
So let's say you want to get rid of it. Well, you just can't stop drinking. You got to replace it with something. And if you don't replace it with a positive habit, it's very likely you're going to replace it with another negative habit. So you have to, if you consciously decide, I'm going to give up drinking, well, what are you going to do to fill up that time that you use in drinking right now? And if you don't find something positive, you probably won't do it. Or you'll develop another negative habit that might be just as bad. So the yamas get followed by the niyamas. That's the second. And then the third is they call asana, which is where hatha yoga starts to come in. And that really gets into diet, gets into generally being healthy and strong, because it's difficult to do the next steps on the path if you're not healthy and strong. If you can't sit still, you can't meditate. And if you're unhealthy and sick, the only thing you're going to think about is how sick and bad you feel. So the third step on the path is asana, to get yourself physically prepared and healthy. The next step is called pranayama. And most of the time in the West, we talk of breath control, because really the breath ties the soul to the body. Now, we would call it life force. Prana means life force or energy. We would say it's more life force control when you get into the esoteric meanings. But in the West, we tend, even in the East, they tend to view it as breath control. So it does start usually with the breath, because to control the energy that animates the body is not an easy thing if you're not aware of it. So we use the breath to begin to control the mind, and the mind controls the prana. And the prana, this life force, this energy, is moving through the body all the time. It animates the body, it gives us life. And the bridge between the esoteric energy of prana and the body is the nervous system. And so what happens when we live is we take this energy. It all resides in the head, in the brain, when we're not using it. When we're resting, it should be there. And what happens is when we want to do something, first we have to think the thought. Let's say I'm going to pick up a cup of coffee. Well, think about what all that entails. That means I got to lean forward, I got to move my arm, my shoulder, my hand, I got to move my fingers, and I got to lift the cup. And that all starts with a thought in the brain that I'm going to have a drink of coffee. Well, most of us do that very haphazardly. We don't pay much attention. We just do it out of habit, really. But what really happens is you think that thought, and then the energy comes from the brain. It goes down through the nerves in the arm. It animates all of those muscles, and they do their job. It all originates in the brain. Well, when we get done, average people just, they put the cup down, and they don't pay any attention, and they let all that energy hang out in the muscles and tissues, in the fingers, the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the neck, all the way up to the breath, the head. Not only that, they get these little knots in their nerves that binds up the energy. So, and that's why we wear our bodies out so fast, is all the stress we talk about is because we've lost control of this energy, and we let it lay out in the arms and the muscles and tissues and all of that. What the realized yogi does, when he wants to do something, he consciously makes that decision. He consciously pushes the energy out to through the nerves to the muscles and tissues that he needs to use. He does the task at hand with full concentration, and then when he's done, he releases all that energy and comes back to the brain, and the body completely relaxes and there's no stress. That energy is prana. So in the fourth step of pranayama, we're really learning how to control that energy completely. Yogis are the most effective, efficient people in creation. Most human beings are so ineffectual, they're so haphazard. It's really, quite honestly, it's amazing they accomplish anything. And then they wonder why they get sick when they leave all that energy wearing out their muscles and nerves and tissues, and they wonder why they only live 50 or 60 or even 100 years. Well, we have tales in the Bible of Methuselah and Noah living 900 years.
Sure,
and
exactly. People giving birth at 600 years of age, and I'm like, really?
Mr. Black said that. He said the weakest part of the human body is the eardrum. He said, and that's good for 800 years. But then he added, as long as we learn how to live properly and have the right attitudes, and you need that from the moment you're born, you know.
Oh my gosh.
But then the
amazing.
next step after pranayama is what they call pratyahara, which is once you get control of that energy, then you withdraw it from the senses, because the five senses are what allow us to make the universe real. I'm going to get far out on you here, but I like this. It's something that gives me a lot of pleasure to talk about. We think the whole universe is outside. The actual fact is the whole universe is inside. And we even have scripture that verifies this. Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Think about what that means. What the heck does that mean? The kingdom of heaven is within. The whole universe is inside. And how, in the way to look at that is this whole universe is really made up of thought. And that is in our brains. And so let's say that this energy, this life force, is a light bulb. Let's use the analogy of a movie projector. So the light bulb is our awareness or our energy. And then we push that light or energy through the film in a movie house, and it projects on the screen. Well, the film in this analogy is our thoughts. We take this energy and we shoot it through our thoughts. And then our thoughts project it on the screen of our senses. The only reason we know that the outside even exists is through our five senses. Without our five senses, there's really no outer universe. And as opposed to what we usually think is that the outside, we sense it through our five senses. What really happens is we think these thoughts and then we project them on our senses. And as a mass of people, we've all agreed to do it kind of the same. We're kind of all mass hypnotized. For instance, I have a blue coffee cup in front of me with a red mitten on it. It's a Michigan winter coffee cup. Well, if you were to look at this, you would probably describe it somewhat the same as I do. But you don't really know for sure that I see blue the same as you see blue. All that we agree on is that light vibration, that rate of light vibration. We both call it blue.
Got it. You know, that's funny because this is reminiscent of the energy that's been circling for the last 15 to 20 years almost about quantum physics. How science is now stepping up to the plate and saying, no, you're creating all this universe outside of you with your thoughts. That if you can, and then going back to the Napoleon Hill think and get rich aspect of if you can believe it and see it and achieve it, you can, or see it and believe it, you can achieve it kind of a thing. So this is, it's all tying together that no matter whether it's the physicists that say this or the bibliophiles that say this or the yogis that say this, it's all the same thing. And if we trace that back to the top of that pyramid, gee, who sits at the top of that pyramid going, gee, they're all getting it. God, I had to make everybody come together to get you to get this, but that's
math and physics. Math and physics were my major in college, so I always kind of have a tendency to describe things that way, but just think about Einstein's famous theory of relativity is that E, which stands for energy, equals mc squared, which is mass times the speed of light squared.
Right.
Well, what they build these huge electron accelerators to kind of show and verify these equations, this theory, because what they find we all know that electrons are minute. You can't see them, even with electron microscopes. And so they accelerate them. And what that theory says is the closer you get a mass, like an electron, to the speed of light, the greater the mass becomes. If you take it to the end in your thought process, that means that when you reach the speed of light, you become infinite. Isn't that what all religions say? God is light?
Exactly. Very true. And we're all go to the light. Everything is going to the light. Even Gene Autry in his little song, as long as we follow the light, we're going to be okay. Because Santa Claus is coming tonight, kind of a thing. But too funny. Just to kind of remind people quickly here, we're In Touch Interviews, Body, Mind, Spirit Radio, in touch with Golden Lotus Yoga, Spiritual Awareness, and Roy Thibodeau. Roy, we can reset the program here and give us some more time, because I do not want you to rush. If you've got a few more minutes, let's really, continue on with what you're doing so that people get the full effect of this. But I would like to toss some information people's way. If they would like to get in touch with you, please go to www.goldenlotusyogaspiritualawareness.org. It's long, but it's not, really. And they're all words you know how to spell. I mean, a lot of times I give people websites, and they're like, how do you spell that? goldenlotusyogaspiritualawareness.org. A lot of great information that we will touch on before we wrap up the show, like what, Roy does, how you can connect with him, what's available. There's classes, there's all kinds of Sunday services, all kinds of good stuff. But to get back to these 8 steps, which I just find fascinating, because I'm sitting here running these through things that I know about what the Egyptians taught us and the Christians taught us and what these people taught us.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, it's the same story. We can go back to Atlantis, the same story, but it's told through the energy of the parables and the parallels of that particular energy and age. And I thought, isn't it funny how the truth never really changes, does it?
No, it just gets kind of wrapped up in the vernacular and the thoughts of the day and the age and the traditions that we live in. And but it's always new, it's always changing, it's always varies a little, but the essence always is the same.
Well, it has to, or we'd lose interest, like you said. It's like, same old stuff, different day. Whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly
But no,
right.
I love that. So we've withdrawn from the senses because we've got our breath in control. That was step 5, and I sort of interrupted all that. I'm sorry. I interrupted the flow, but we can flow right back into it.
No, it's great. I teach a class on Raja Yoga, a workshop once a quarter, and we always get, there's never enough time. It really needs to be a full weekend, and I do that once in a while, but we try to do it in 3 hours. It's just not enough time. But anyway, after the pratyahara, after the withdrawal from the senses, you have concentration. And concentration is the idea of holding one thought for as long as you want to hold it. That's perfect concentration. And think about yourself and how everybody, their thoughts flit from thing to thing to thing to thing. And they drain their power. They become less powerful. They become less effective. A perfect example, and I go back, I was raised Catholic, so I'm steeped in the Christian tradition, although I'm a yogi, and I think most Westerners are. So a perfect example is when Jesus withered the fig tree. And it's a great part of Jesus' humanity, too, because if you read it properly, Jesus was hungry, and he was mad because the fig tree didn't have figs on it. But the fact is it was out of season. It shouldn't have had figs on it. But anyway, he got mad, and you can just see him almost like a wizard pointing his finger, and he withered the fig tree. That's perfect concentration.
Okay.
To be able to hold your attention on one thought for as long as you want to do it. So that's the sixth step. Then the seventh step is meditation. Meditation is taking perfect concentration and putting it on the concept of God or the ultimate reality, whatever you consider to be the ultimate reality, whatever name you might give it, where concentration can be on anything, can be on the most mundane thing. But meditation takes it the next step to perfect concentration on a concept of God or the ultimate reality. And then the eighth step, the crowning step, is, and we give it several names. The Buddhists call it nirvana. The yogis call it yoga or samadhi. In Christianity, you know what Christianity calls it?
Heaven.
This is funny. They call it communion.
Oh,
That's
communion.
why
Okay.
all the Christian churches have, and it's devolved into this ceremony where they take a wafer of bread and they call that communion. But it's a symbolic of samadhi, or the eighth step of the Eightfold Path. And what that is in meditation, there's still a little bit of a separation. There's the meditator and there's the God that you're meditating on. And when you can give up that separation, you merge. You become one. Jesus has expressed it this way: my Father and I are one. That is communion. That's samadhi. That's yoga. That's the goal of yoga. That's the eighth step. That's the crowning step. And there's a process. And you know, how fast you go through these steps varies from person to person and depends mostly on your zeal and how badly you want to do it. And it's almost imperative. I won't say it's impossible without, but I would say Mr. Black, when asked that, he said, well, he wouldn't say it's impossible, but he said he didn't know anybody who had done this without having a guru or a spiritual teacher. So it becomes important once you have that zeal to search someone out who has accomplished it. At least they're ahead of you. But to find a true guru would be to find someone who's already self-realized and then follow their teachings. And some people are afraid, well, I'm giving up control of myself to this person. Well, yeah, but where is that getting you so far? You know, so it's getting you where you want it to go.
You're not really doing that, though. You're not really doing that. And you just said that when you said self-realized. You're not giving up control of yourself. You're actually finding that control within yourself. And I think, again, it goes back to that feeling of non-worthiness. And you and I both came from a Christian background in that regard. We're taught to believe we're not worthy, which I think is why we reject that thought process. And I think that's why, too, you've got to find that yogi or that guru, because when we start to, because look at that, here's a yogi, and here's me, and here's 9 billion other people on the planet. What are the odds that I'm going to walk up to somebody at any given point in time or speak to them or react or connect with them who could potentially, you know, veer me off my path? The odds are pretty stinking good. So if you don't have somebody there to constantly reality check that until you feel that self-realization, you do have a tendency to reach for the candy bar, go for the popcorn, you know, take a break or whatever else, because you weren't raised like the little Dalai Lamas. They're born. They know they're Dalai Lamas. Guess what they do? They spend their whole life grooming themselves to be Dalai Lamas. Why? Because of what you just said.
Yeah. I know when I went and lived with Mr. Black for those 3 years, the greatest thing that he gave me, and so many great things he gave me, but was the habit of sitting down every day. And we always had an hour meditation in the evening. They still do it today. After 8 o'clock every day, they have an hour meditation, except for Sundays, they have a morning meditation service. But and that's something that I was able to continue my whole life and lengthen it even. But to get that habit and make it part of your life, because meditation and just the idea of sitting still, because it says in the Old Testament in Psalms, it says, "Be still and know that I am God."
Oh, that is my favorite one. I love it. I can't believe you just said that. I write that on pieces of paper, and I slap it up all around everywhere I look, because that and trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. I mean, Proverbs 3:5. Sorry about that, guys, but old habits die hard. Two of my favorite quotes out of the Bible. But the first is, "Be still and know that I am God." All right, you just rocked my world.
It's in Proverbs. It's in Proverbs. Oh, is it Psalms or Proverbs?
No, you had Psalms. I had Proverbs. We're right. You're right.
Okay.
No, Proverbs is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. But no, the other one was definitely Psalms. Oh my God, that's funny. I love it.
So just as a little bit of a advertisement, I guess.
Sure,
my wife and I do teach Hatha yoga classes. We live in Grosse Pointe Woods, and we teach Hatha yoga classes in the Grosse Pointe Woods Community Center. Hatha yoga is a good way for Westerners to get started in yoga, because they can see results right away. You take a yoga class and you feel better immediately. And we teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I teach in the morning at 8:30 at the Grosse Pointe Woods Community Center, and Marianne teaches in the evening at 6 o'clock, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We also have a meditation for those that are looking for a group to meditate with, or looking for instructions because they don't know how to do it. We have a weekly meditation at our home on Thursday evenings from 7:30 to 8:30. With a small group, we have it in our home. If it gets bigger, maybe we'll find an outside place, but for right now, this is adequate. Anyone's invited to attend, and at any level, if they're new to meditation, we give instruction. If they're an experienced meditator, we meditate for an hour. So for most experienced meditators, that's a good length of time. And then on Sunday, we have a member who owns an eye clinic in Fraser, Michigan, at 14 Mile and Utica Road, and he graciously allows us to use his office space when they're not open. So we have Sunday service there from 10 to 11. It's a little different. We have half of the hour is for meditation. We do a little bit of chanting just to kind of set the mood. And then the other half was a lecture on a topic that varies week to week. Because yoga can talk about any topic and make it meaningful to your spiritual life, and give you tips on how to approach so many aspects of your life to make yourself happier and more fulfilled and more successful. So we do that on Sunday. We also, quarterly, I teach a Raja Yoga class at the same center on Saturday morning. I haven't scheduled the next one yet, but sometime after the first of the year, we'll do another one. Oh, and this time of year is a great time of year, particularly if you're in America with the holiday season. It's such a spiritual time. So we have a 3-hour Christmas meditation on Saturday, December 21st at our home. From 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. And people are welcome to attend that as well. And don't be intimidated by the 3 hours. It is lengthy, I admit that, but we have breaks on the hour. Use the restroom, stretch. You can stretch any time during the 3 hours, move around if you need to, as long as you don't disturb the rest too much. And I have a recording of a 3-hour meditation Mr. Black did on Christmas back in the 60s, and it's very spiritual and uplifting, so we listen to that also.
Oh, that is so incredibly, I just think it's cool. Like you said, amazing. You found a yogi in Detroit, and guess what? You might not be in the actual Motor City proper, but you're not so far flung that we can't get to you, Roy Thibodeau. And I would like to remind people again, there you go, www.goldenlotusyogaspiritualawareness.org, and I have been to that site, all these wonderful options and opportunities that Roy is speaking of. You can step right through, click right on it. It tells you how to contact them, how to find out, he and Marianne, let me be specific when I say them, how to contact Roy and Marianne about you want to attend this class, you're looking into joining the meditation group, where are Sunday services, and what else is going on, as well as being able to procure the various items that you speak of when you talk about having recordings of Mr. Black and other wonderful things, and links to Song of the Morning and links to Self-Realization Fellowship, so that people, it's like a one-stop shop, but it really is it's a wonderful site. So I like to thank you very much for it. And believe me, I look at websites with a critical eye. If I can't get what I'm looking for and figure out what's going on, I'm out of there. Because to me, it's like if you're putting up a site, you want me to land there. What did you do that for? And you guys did a great job, so I appreciate that.
Well, thanks. When I just set up the Golden Lotus Yoga Spiritual Awareness site, and as you said, the name's too long, but with all the websites today, it's hard to find short names. They're all taken.
It is.
I tried to do an acronym.
And if you'd have just named it Roy Thibodeau, it doesn't tell anybody what you do. And this very specifically says what it is. And the funny thing is, people that are looking will be led and guided to, and will find it regardless. But no,
sure,
Golden Lotus Spiritual Yoga Awareness gives me all the information. I know what I'm going to find when I go there. You're not selling me Girl Scout cookies. No, you know what I'm saying? So it's not misleading.
One more thing? Can I
Sure.
mention one more thing? Because you brought it up, and I wanted to address a little bit what Kriya Yoga is. And I would say Kriya Yoga is, it depends on who you're talking to. Other people that I highly respect would say it a little differently, but this is Mr. Black's, and I would even say Yogananda, and my take on it, is that Kriya Yoga gets very specific. Like Raja Yoga is pretty philosophical. It talks about the different steps, and it talks about the different paths of yoga. What Kriya Yoga does is it gets right down to the nitty-gritty and says, okay, here's what you got to do step by step. And so Kriya Yoga, we have an initiation, and much of it revolves around a certain pranayama that we use. Pranayama meaning energy and breath control, and gets into the chakras, which we didn't talk about, but we get into, and how to move the energy up and down the spine and all of that. And then that is it's very specific, takes some specific instructions, and it involves an initiation. And I give, following Mr. Black's tradition, I give a Kriya Yoga initiation once a year in June. But that is closed. You have to get my permission to do that. But we follow that tradition, and we also were ordained, Marianne and I, by Roy Eugene Davis, who is also one of Yogananda's disciples, direct disciples, and he's one of the few that's still living. And he has a retreat down in northeastern Georgia, just off the Smoky Mountains, about 2 miles north of Atlanta. And his organization is called Center for Spiritual Awareness. That's why I put the spiritual awareness in, to kind of honor Roy. And Golden Lotus was Mr. Black's organization. So I kind of tied the two together. And so we have our authority for the Kriya Yoga initiation, both through Yogacharya and Roy Davis. And we hold that once a year in June.
Nice. Oh, my gosh. Well, I can't thank you enough for giving us your time and your energy and your love and support here today. We're live the 30th day of November 2013, just out of Thanksgiving and into the Christmas holidays for those that celebrate them, and for all the other holidays. That's why I just call them holy days. Holy days kind of covers it all for everybody, and it's what they are.
That's what holidays mean. That's what holidays mean.
That's what I always thought it meant, but it's, boy, do I get the stink eye from people on that. But that's another show, another time. But Roy Thibodeau has been my guest, and we've been talking about Golden Lotus Yoga, spiritual awareness, and all kinds of wonderful, wonderful information that you can find, again, at Golden Lotus Yoga, spiritualawareness.org, and we do hope you go there. This show will go into archive within 3 minutes of me hitting the stop button. And the archive can be picked up at bodymindspiritradio.com, so we hope people will go there and share this show, spread the word, and let people know that there is something that they've always had that Roy Thibodeau and his wife Marianne can help them find again through the study and the practice and the lifelong habit of yoga, which and I'm sure Roy will share this with you when he meets you in person. He will explain to you you've always had it. You just didn't know you did. So thank you for reminding us of what we've always had, because especially at this time of the year, it's nice to know that there's something more than just what we see around us, and that is the fact that we can create something different to see around us. Thank you so much, Roy.
Well, Annette, thank you. I get a chill just thinking about the gratitude I feel for what you just did. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you, and much love and peace for the holy days and beyond to you and your lovely wife and all that you do, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're so welcome. Bye-bye. We just want to let everybody know that the very next live program here, for the next couple of live programs actually for Body, Mind, Spirit Radio, will be on Monday, December 2nd, and Tuesday, December 3rd. Both programs start at 8 a.m. Eastern. On Monday, it is Ready, Set, Intention. And on Tuesday, and every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Eastern, by the way, Body, Mind, Spirit Radio is Prayer Aid, Healing the World with Power Prayer. Please go to our website, bodymindspiritradio.com, and find out about all the wonderful programs. And because we are at the end of the calendar month here on November 30th, the Body, Mind, Spirit Guide is about ready to drop. And I remind you about that every month. It's the same thing, bodymindspiritguide.com. And if you don't know where to pick one up, type your zip code into the little box and hit search, and it will bring up all the locations near you. And if nothing else, the Internet's near you. You can always read it on the Internet. Thank you so much for tuning in today. In Touch with Golden Lotus, Yoga Spiritual Awareness, live today, the 30th of November, 2013, here at Body, Mind, Spirit Radio.